pleased to say that I've been joined by the Nelson FC management team of Mark Fell and Tim Breaker. Welcome to Dave's Diary.
Thank you.
Well, Nelson are really setting the world on fire at the moment in the North West Counties League First Division. They're currently top of the table, 9 points clear of second place Formby. If they do manage to achieve the title, it will be the first time almost in living memory since Nelson won a title. The last time famously was in the 1920s when they won the old what would now be League One. It was then the Third Division North and got promoted to what's now the Championship. Since then they've had one Lancashire League title success, but it's fair to say that you'd be setting a new modern precedent if you were to hold on for this title this season, Mark.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it's nice for a football club with such great history to have an opportunity to try and relive a little bit of that good fortune in terms of performances on the pitch. We've worked really hard in changing a lot of things at the football club, not just the on-field antics and our success on there, but some of the off-field structures as well, and trying to prepare this football club, hopefully, for a little bit to climb the pyramid as high as we possibly can do, and that starts in the North West Counties Division 1. But if you look historically, recently at clubs that have made that transition, we look at the likes of Fylde and Fleetwood, and it can be done. So we're doing our very best to do it as professionally as we possibly can, and gladly the results have shown for us as well this season.
Well, you've done quite a lot of business on Tameside this season, which is one of the reasons that we asked you in, and we'll be having a chat about that shortly. But let's have a little bit of a chat about Nelson as a club. Tim, some of our listeners might not be aware of the fact, but Nelson were actually the first team ever to beat Real Madrid away from home, the first English club ever to beat Real Madrid away from home. It's a pretty big claim to fame for a club playing at Step 6.
Yeah, of course, it's massive. Last season, with the build-up to the Champions League, at a point Sky Sports came down and did a little feature on us before a home game against Earlham, which was nice for the players. I think some of the players weren't too sure about it and didn't know some of the history that we've got as a football club. And to be honest, obviously it hits home a little bit how far it's fallen, and obviously probably the chance that we've got to try and get it back up closer to where it belongs. But it's a massive achievement, isn't it?
Well, we have got two ex-Football League sides here on Tameside. Glossop North End back in the 1800s through till about 1914. And then Stalybridge Celtic had, I think, 1 or 2 seasons in the 20s, but none of them had the 10 years that you had in the Football League. But I guess there's a little bit of history weighing on your shoulders when you look at the backstory of the club and thinking where it is now. Do you feel a certain nod in the direction of history that you owe it to the club and its fans to try and drag it back up skywards again?
A little bit, I think. I don't think that the history is a hindrance to us. I think we've almost got to do better at educating people about it and making people aware, certainly locally, that there is another potentially big football club in East Lancashire. I know we're right on the doorstep of Burnley. We've got Blackburn down the road and Accrington in between, but we've got, as you said, a fantastic history at the club, and our job is to try and give the football club back to the people who have supported it. We have got a hardy group of supporters who follow the club and can remember some of the more glorious days at Nelson. So our job is twofold really. One, to give them back, I suppose, something that they've lost from Nelson and try and give them some success at whatever level, because I think people in Nelson just want to see the football club winning and doing well and doing as best they can. And then the other side of it is trying to get an emerging supporting group from the town, from the local area, from Pendle, to come down and get engaged with the football club. And that's something we've tried to do this year, started to do. And I think that will come. It will be helped by success on the field as well, and things like promotions and doing well. But we want to get young people involved at the football club, as I'm sure every non-league club does, and want to raise the gates, and hopefully that has a knock-on effect into our ability to compete at the different levels.
Well, again, people won't know, but you've got quite close ties with Accrington Stanley Football Club at the moment. Both sides currently share the training facilities at Accrington and Rossendale College. That must be a big advantage for a club like Nelson, having access to the sort of facilities that are down there, which I understand are state-of-the-art, Tim.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, we're fantastic at education as a college. We're linked in very well with regards to Accrington Stanley, Burnley and Nelson all having scholarship schemes at the college.
So you have a full-time scholarship team yourself, do you?
Yeah, Nelson have their own under-18 scholars that study, train and obviously play for Nelson. So that's a good step forward that we've undertaken this year, that hopefully will in turn try to develop some players through from the local area that go on to represent Nelson at hopefully in maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, when we've obviously had the success we've had on the pitch to take us to higher leagues as well. And obviously sharing the complex and the training facilities is nice.
Okay, and Mark, obviously you're flying high at the top of the league at the moment, and in 3 of the games, I think at least you've scored at least 8 goals in 3 separate matches. You must be doing something right. Last season, you took charge midway through the season. It ended up as a pretty much a mid-table season. What's been the secret to success this time around? Because it's the best Nelson performance for many a year.
Yeah, we've worked really hard. There's no substitute for hard work, and we have worked really hard from the first day. Well, from the minute that last season finished. I took over in November of the 12-13 season, and that was just about us consolidating the position we were in. And from the minute that season finished, we were already well into our development of this year and our plans for this year. And there is no secret to it. It's hard work. It's pulling in a few favours from a few players that I've worked with, and the likes of Tim and some of the staff I've worked with before, and asking them to come and help us, and getting people to buy into what we're doing at the football club. And people have done that, and we've got some very, very good players who've helped us along our way. And I think the goal scoring record that we've spoken about, I think we're only the second or third side in the whole of non-league to hit 100 league goals before this point in the season. We've scored 122 in total. It's an average of over 3 a game, and as you said, on 3 occasions we've hit 8 past teams. So that wasn't our issue. We knew that scoring goals wouldn't be our issue, because the philosophy of the way we play is really quite dynamic and direct and attacking. Our issue for a long time was stopping them going in the other end, and although we have a plus 55 goal difference, which is to be envied by a lot of people in this league, we had to deal with our defensive frailties, and we were almost a bit of a Kevin Keegan side at one point, where we were just scoring more than the opposition.
We'll score more than you.
We'll score more than you, and we wanted to deal with that, because it's not how we wanted to. It's not good for mine or Tim's hearts, I don't think, and it was getting to the point where 4 3s and 5 4s and 6 2s were a little bit stressful for us. So we dealt with some of the defensive frailties. We brought in an ex-Ashton United player in George Melling, who made a big difference to us from a defensive point of view, and that seems to have worked. I think we've kept 4 clean sheets in the last 6 now, and we've dropped that goals against column quite significantly.
And where do you two personally go from here? Obviously, those of the people that are watching the podcast can see that you're a fairly young management team. You must be quite ambitious. Do you think that you can achieve success with Nelson FC, or do you see yourself moving on to maybe Football League positions after on the back of hopefully a track record of getting promotions with Nelson?
I think from our point of view, we're obviously pleased to be involved at Nelson Football Club first and foremost. We have done all our own professional development quite early in our careers. We're both holders of UEFA licences through the coach education programme. So we're qualified, if you like, in terms of where we might want to go in future. In terms of where we are, we're happy to stay at Nelson and to get Nelson as far as they possibly can do. In future, who knows? I mean, we're both employed by the college at Accrington, and we've got excellent sort of jobs there, secure jobs there. And I think there always comes a tipping point where becoming professional from a coaching or management point of view, you often trade that against the job security of it and whether it's worthwhile or not. So it's certainly not something from a full-time perspective that I'm looking at initially, but it's one of those things where you just never know. And you look at some of the managers out there. I'm a friend of John Coleman's, and looking at what he did when he got hold of Accrington, and that very much part-time, and then he's obviously developed into, as he's grown with that football club, it's become more full-time, and hence his position changes. So from my point of view, never know, and at the moment, as I said, it's a nice ride to be on with Nelson at the moment.
All right. Well, just before we turn our attention to Tameside football, I'll just ask you about your 2 games coming up this week. Tim, firstly, you're away to Eccleshall on Saturday. They're down in the bottom reaches of the division, but they ran you close at your own ground a couple of weeks ago. You just scraped home 1-0. I guess you see it being another tough game.
Yeah, I think obviously going into the closing part of the season where a lot certainly rides on it for ourselves. Playing against teams sometimes in the lower positions in the league doesn't always reflect how you'd look at the positions in the table and expect the results to go. Ecclesall came to us when we played them at home. They parked the bus, to excuse the pun a little bit, and made it very, very hard for us to break them down, to create chances. The pitch had a bobble or two in it, and a little bit of luck kind of eluded us at times. And you watched it from the sidelines, and you wondered if it was going to be one of those days where it was either a 0-0 and a couple of points dropped, or they had a couple of chances themselves on the counter when we were probably overcommitting to scrape it. So I suppose it depends how they set up. But since then we've done a little bit of business in the transfer front to maybe make us even more dynamic going forward. If we can stay solid at the back and break them down, I think after we score the first, we'll go on to hopefully dominate them.
Okay, well, we'll talk about one of those transfers because it involves a Tameside player or a former Tameside player in just a moment. But Mark, and then Oldham Borough away on Monday night. What are you expecting there?
Probably very similar to Ecclesall. I think that it depends how they approach the game. This league is notorious for really not knowing what you're going to get. And I think
it was 8-4, wasn't it, the home game?
8-4 was the home game.
Crazy.
It was,
yeah.
I think we were 4-3 down at half time as well, and came back to score a hatful in the second half.